We are here today with lovely Karamia, who will discuss gut health with all different aspects. So it's not going to be just nutrition. Karamia has a lot of aspects to talk to us about our gut and how important is our gut health to keep our immune system, to keep our longevity, and feeling healthy during this time. So I won't talk too much, and we'll pass it through to Karamia. Thank you.
Thanks, Michael. So you may have joined last time and know that I'm a nutritionist and naturopath and homeopath, and I've just recently completed a diploma in hypnotherapy. Anyway, in terms of gut health, it's something I've been involved with for a long time. In my role as a colonic hydrotherapist. So I've done about 10,000 colonics. So I've seen a lot of guts and I really miss it at the moment, really miss doing colonics. So the talk that I have is one that I've prepared earlier. It's a talk I've given at, health food shops and things like that. So what I thought, it runs about 15 minutes maybe, and then we can open up the floor to any questions. Does that make sense? Yeah, great.
Yeah,
okay. So what we need to remember is that our gut is exposed to the external world. Everything we swallow the gut is entirely exposed to the external world. It's not like the skin, where skin has a barrier. So we have to be mindful that there's a whole lot of sequences and checks and balances in place to make sure that the gut is supported on that journey. So, but unlike the skin that acts as a barrier, what the gut is exposed to affects the entire body. So the gut is connected to everything else. We already know this. In the last 40 years, we've been looking at the gut-brain axis, not something that's new to people in sort of my job, but now it's become part of the common parlance where everybody talks about the gut-brain axis and stuff. We really only have mouse models and research done on mice, but that is showing that what happens in our gut directly affects our moods. So the gut-brain axis is in constant talking with the brain. So the gut is talking to the brain 24 hours a day while we're sleeping as well, and through what's called the vagus nerve. So the point here is taking care of your gut really should be seen as important as brushing your teeth, as going for exercise, as eating healthily. A big priority. Give some thought to the microbiota of your gut. The microbiome, you've probably heard of it. This is just a word used to describe the complex environment that we have in our gut. Now, when I say gut, I'm primarily talking about the large intestine, not so much the small, but the large intestine is what that's where all the microbiota, the microbiome lives, up to 2 kilos of bacteria. Now, it's not just bacteria that's in there. We've got phages, we've got fungi, we have something called archaea, and these are little one-celled microorganisms that kind of tell the gut what to do. We have spores. There's just a wealth of stuff in there, and we're still figuring that out. In fact, let me give you some top tips. There's approximately 300 different genus within compromising the gut, and about 1,000 known different species. So we're actually, there's more than 3 million genes in the gut, which is 150 times more than the human genome. So actually, in reality, we are more bacteria than human. So we're a big ball of bacteria held together by a bag of skin. So these microbiota are always sort of, they have lots of different roles. There's things like viruses living in there. And what people often don't realize that up to 60% of your daily stool is dead bacteria. It's not food. So these 2 kilos of bacteria are constantly dying. You've got your own cells, you've got your own pathogens, your own hormones. All these things are being shed constantly. Essentially, if something can't be eliminated through the breath or through the sweat or urinated out, then it has to be pooped out. So pooping is a really important thing. Ideally, we do it twice, if not 3 times a day. I don't know many women that do that, but yeah, we won't get into colonic hydrotherapy. We won't do it as a push for our colonics, although I will say that we do know that it supports your immune health, but I said that last time. So what's the purpose of we also know, you probably know this as well, that the colon is responsible for creating some B vitamins, for manufacturing vitamin K, making things called short chain fatty acids in order to, feed the gut and to also train the immune system, what is friend, what is foe. The gut wall stops things from getting into the bloodstream that could be, detrimental to the body. So let's talk about what compromises a healthy gut. One of the big things to consider is variety in your diet. I would much rather somebody, have a varied diet than, oh, I only eat organic blueberries and organic raspberries and that sort of thing. Well, then get the non-organics or the frozen fruits into your diet. Go for the elderberries, get the other blackberries. Just really expose your gut to as many foods as possible. If you see a vegetable and you don't know what to do with it, buy it and try it out. Google will have to do with kohlrabi. Have a look at what to do with Swiss chard. And there's some, fascinating vegetables offered through Natura, and Ocado have some interesting ones as well. Wing beans are new on the market now. So definitely expose yourself to more foods. The Victorians actually ate, that's more about fiber, but they had a wider and broader range of fruits that they would eat, because they would eat a lot of things we would consider unedible. Hawthorn, you see it everywhere in this country. That used to be called highwayman's salad. That the leaves are edible. I ate some the other day on my daily exercise walk, and they taste pretty bad. They don't really taste that nice at all, but they are edible. You can pick some and stick them in your salad just for the heck of it. Get out there and start eating foraged foods. It's nettle season at the moment. Pick them with gloves on, obviously. And as soon as you expose them to hot water, all that stinginess goes away. Make a great soup. Dandelions, the entire plant is edible. So what I'm trying to say is eat foods that you're not familiar with. They will help your gut. And really expose yourself to other, bacteria and other things, especially the foraged foods, washing them well, picking them off the beaten path so that, dogs haven't feed on them, so that you can expose yourself to the spores in the food and stuff. Obviously, we want to get organic more than non-organic, because the food is just more exposed to the soil. Something grown hydroponically in Holland and then stuck in a plastic bag, there's not going to be a great variety of bacteria on that, as opposed to, something grown in, locally and actually exposed to the ground itself. So let me see where I am on that. Stress, unfortunately, has a deleterious negative effect on the gut. This is where in the womb, when they've done mouse models, a stressed mother gives birth to baby mice that have less gut bacteria, less variety in their gut. So making sure that you have a daily regimen to support turning down those cortisol levels. And I don't necessarily mean yoga. I mean really doing nothing. It's a great time right now in quarantine to just really, cultivate that habit of doing sweet nothing. Normally I'd put another word in there, but I won't, because this is on video. So also be aware that training for a marathon or some serious amount of exercise can cause a leaky gut. This is relatively new science. So if you're going hard and heavy for like some half marathon craziness, take extra probiotics. Ensure that you have downtime during your training period. I would often say to, especially my female clients, when did we run? When did we have huge bursts of energy where we ran and ran and ran? When it wasn't safe, when we were under serious, serious problems. So again, our old hardware sees the new software running every day as things are not safe. So be aware that you understand your genetics around how much exercise you are allowed to do. You know, there are people that are better suited for different exercise than others. And this is where the PAR program can really help. So antibiotics, bad news on many levels. They're overprescribed and overused. They really should be used as life-threatening, generally, certainly not to clear up somebody's skin. There is evidence to support that overexposure to antibiotics can make us more susceptible to serious disease, especially things like cancer. So also there is a belief system at the moment I've come across where people say, oh, you know, I had some antibiotics because I had a bit of a thing going on, but I took some probiotics, so it's okay. That's actually incorrect. It is entirely possible that the gut never recovers from a course of antibiotics. So please consider that before you just take the prescription. You can actually take antibiotics and probiotics together at the same time. It actually shows that the antibiotics work better, but they need to be taken away from each other. So 2 to 4 hours away from one another. So talking about probiotics, there's tons of information about there. I have a World Health Organization quote about defines a probiotic as a live microorganism which, when administered in adequate amounts, confers a health benefit on the host. There's no test at the end, so don't worry. We can talk about the key difference between, sometimes I get asked about a probiotic and a prebiotic. A probiotic is generally a bacteria that comes in a pill form or in a powder. A prebiotic is the food that feeds the probiotics. And we want to have more of these foods in our diet as well. And they generally are a starch that the body can't break down. So things like, it's what's called essentially a purified dietary fiber. So you'll find these in foods, which I've written down. Let me find those. I've got a list. Bananas, fennel, and asparagus. I love asparagus. Season coming up. Potatoes, onions, and garlic, leeks, fennel, Jerusalem artichokes, pak choy, and chicory. Now, you may have heard of something called inulin. It's now being added to our foods. You'll find it. It's often labeled a fructo-oligosaccharide, and this is basically an inulin. I can see Mihail's face. What's that? Fructo-oligosaccharides are essentially prebiotics, just the proper name for them. You also want to really consider your fiber intake, and this is another interesting thing about our current diets. We again fail when it comes to the Victorians. They ate way more fiber than we did. Fiber comes in 2 different types, soluble and insoluble. So the insoluble fiber is the stuff that most people are aware of. That's the wheat, you know, the all brands, the oats, the vegetable fiber, the stuff that doesn't really break down particularly well. And then you've got the soluble fiber, and this is the mucilaginous goo that you get with some foods, like okra, you know, goo you get in the middle, or you get the mucilaginous mucus-like soluble fiber from flax seeds, linseeds, chia seeds. That's a great fiber that we really want to include in our diet more often. And so those things are like, yeah, chia seeds. There's not a lot of it out there, so do consider adding chia seeds and flax seeds to your diet. You do want to soak them ahead of time, because just eating them as they are, then you're not getting that mucilaginous insoluble fiber. So another thing to consider with gut health, of course, is fermented foods. On my website, I have an easy recipe for kimchi. But you know what? I don't really like kimchi. So don't be put off by it is an acquired taste. Keep experimenting. The thing is, and I encourage all of you listening, all 7 of us, to do the following, because it's painfully easy. So you get a jar That's stuck. You get a good old Kilner jar with the orange thingy. I've decided that I don't like fermented cabbage, but I do like fermented carrots. So I just stuck, a couple organic carrots through my food processor, stuck in some little spices, dried spices, and whack the lid on. And that's it. Honestly, you don't need to do anything else. You don't have to have it covered in water. It's as simple as sticking veg in a jar and shutting the lid. And then once a day in the beginning, you want to just open it and close it so that some of the gases can escape. If you want to cheat a bit, you can add a bit of probiotic to it, open one up that you've got in the house and add a bit and stir it in. But honestly, it couldn't be simpler. You don't have to sterilize the jars. Just get a really good vinegar, clean out the jar before you use it, whack the veg in, close the lid, and then just kind of forget about it. Come back to it in a few weeks. If you see any white stuff growing on it, it's gone. Chuck it out, try again. Stick it in the dishwasher, vinegar, whack the veg in there and try again. It's just meant that I've had a jar last over a year on the countertop. And then eventually it still tasted okay. It's pretty good. But you'll find ways, especially with the summer coming up, just add in your fermented veg every day. Just to find a way of getting them into your salads and things. You don't want to cook with them because, of course, that kills off all the good bacteria. But yeah, no excuse. People, stick some veg in a jar and close the jar. Done. Easy, 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 easy. So this is the traditional way of getting bacteria into our guts. It's probably one of the oldest methods of preserving foods because we would have had a huge bounty and we went, what the heck do we do with all of this? And we would have fermented it. Fermentation goes back to 6000 BC. So again, don't worry, there's no test. One of the things I also wanted to talk about was something to consider, and this is a bit of a bad news, but be aware, is one of the most important aspects or impact things to your gut is how you were born, whether you were cesarean or vaginal. So we recently have realized that the vagina, the birth canal, changes a day or a couple of days before birth. It seeds the vaginal canal with two of the most common bacteria, the bifidus and then lactobacillus acidophilus. And so when the baby comes through the birth canal, it's then seeded and voila, we have gut bacteria. What we're finding is when a child is born cesarean, they don't get gut bacteria for life. So yeah, not good. They end up with bacteria in their guts that is actually closer to adult skin, because that's what they would have been exposed to. So if any of you know women that are pregnant and tell them to research this, there is something called vaginal seeding. I think it's a great idea. Some of the doctors that I follow online think it's also a great idea. It's called vaginal seeding, where when the baby is born, you take a clean cloth, obviously, rub it all over the vagina, rub it all over the baby's face, wet it, and stick it down the mouth. So that the baby is seeded then. Now, if you do have children or you yourself have been cesarean born, just be aware that you are going to need your friend jar of carrots more often. You're going to be that much more susceptible, and that you are probably wise to take a probiotic on a regular basis. Also, I'd recommend change the brand because everybody's different. Apparently 60% of us, no, that's not right. All of us share up to 60% of our bacteria, but then that other 40% is unique to you. So when you take a brand like BSL is a good brand, or lots of other good ones on the market, generally the more you spend, the better they are. Then that might not be the ones that work best for you. You might not have that particular strain. And we're finding more and more and more about the strains all the time. They have, really interesting names like, 14, 16 and DG and all these other sort of things. What time are we looking? My goodness, I sure talk a lot. So other than that, fermented foods, a colorful diet, don't eat sugar still. Shame. Processed food is bad. You already know all this. And does anybody have any questions with our 8 minutes left?
Yeah, let's open up for questions. So you can type your questions on the chat and we'll read them through and have some more updates and tips from Karamia. So don't be shy. I will ask something.
Okay.
Is breastfeeding help? So if someone was cesarean.
Good question. I would imagine it does, because we do know that what the mother eats directly affects the breast milk and comes through. They know the body is full of bacteria and germs, so even just breastfeeding and having that contact with the mother's skin, then we'll be exposed to bacteria. But we don't know how long after a baby is born cesarean that we have to seed it. We're thinking maximum possibly 48 hours. Okay. So if you do have a newborn and it's cesarean, you can also give probiotics.
We do have more questions. How about parasites?
Spores were good last week instead of probiotics. I'm taking reishi. Oh, nice. Okay. Yeah, reishi is a spore because, of course, it's a mushroom. The Mega Spore Biotic is a commercial product made by a company called Mega Spore Biotic, and that is a specific gut spore product, not gut bacteria. Reishi is an awesome product, as are all the mushrooms, but that's not a specific for the gut. I'm actually talking about the Mega Spore Biotic product. How mushrooms affect the gut bacteria, I don't know. I'm not sure. I know that reishi is very good for the immune system.
Okay, we can.
Anything else?
We may research more about that and get back.
Yep. That sounds good.
Yep. Any more questions? Okay. We have a shy team. I do have a question about the jar. So I do love kimchi, so I've put it everywhere. Good. I like it, and I love making it.
Oh, good.
But in between the different vegetables, so you say just stuck vegetables in the jar. Are there specific ones that are better than others, or whatever?
I don't think so. I think it's actually the breakdown, the lactic acid and the lactic fermentation that actually provides it. So it's actually the breakdown of the foods without oxygen that actually provides the goodness. So I would imagine the point is just to eat it, just to make it and eat it. If you can get that, then you're good. Yeah.
Okay.
And experiment with it.
The child was lemons, so my mom used to make lemon kimchi, and that was amazing. And it's great to add it to anything. So it's kind of like a side dish, and it's kind of nice, spicy. So give that a try. It's really, really an interesting one. It's like an I don't know. It's like an add-on.
Right. We've had a question with regards to serotonin in the gut. Yes, weirdly enough, the majority of the serotonin is made in the gut. It's also made in the lungs as well, which is interesting. Not a lot of people realize that. This is where I find that, that's just underlines the gut-brain axis, really, doesn't it? How the serotonin, the feel-good neurotransmitters, support the gut, or supported by a healthy gut, really. And this is where you also want to make sure that your bowel is turning over a lot, and that you are, pooping on a really good basis. Our lives are so much more sedentary than they used to be. And we also have less fiber in our diet, and our foods also sadly contain a lot of pesticides and antifungals, and these antifungals that our blueberries and our food is sprayed with or gassed with. They use gas to stop bacteria from growing, especially on fruits that are packaged in plastic, because that's just a little micro petri dish, isn't it, really? So what they do is they gas them with chlorine a lot of the time, which is going to kill off all the bacteria. But when then we eat that, we are actually ingesting chlorine, and chlorine kills off bacteria. So we have a kind of a fighting battle. Also, with the current pandemic, we're using a lot of antibacterial wipes. Antibacterial wipes are still antibiotics. So, things like Triclosan. Triclosan was everywhere. It was even in toothpaste up until a few years ago. The Norwegians and the Swedes banned it. I generally say if the Norwegians and the Swedes do something, we should do it too. They're generally ahead of us, I think, on a lot of things. But I would say that we want to encourage, we've got a lot of things going against our gut health. So, and that includes the serotonin, being made as well. I don't know if that answers your question.
We have a few more questions here. Mm-hmm. So one of them is about, I wanted to ask about giving probiotic to young children. My daughter was born via cesarean and nearly 4 years old. When is a good time to start giving probiotics?
Absolutely. As soon as possible, you'll find specific products for children, even infants. So you've got BioInfantis by BioCare. There will be products, and even if you don't have any, then just give them the adult ones, but just less of. Just open them up and give half a container, preferably in, just the worst that will happen is that they'll get diarrhea, and then you just cut it back a bit. So, experiment with that. They might get a little bloated in the beginning. Just see how it affects their bowel movements. But generally, you can't really go wrong with, you're not going to do any harm by giving them even adult probiotics, but just less of it at a go. Oh, and I also want to say, do never buy Yakult. Never ever buy any of those Yakulty little bottles of sugar. They're specifically made to be non-colony forming units. So they only work as long as you keep drinking the damn things. And they're expensive, bad for the environment, and just a waste of money. So you're much better off to buy, to make this kind of stuff or a bottle of probiotics, but never buy Yakult again. You're wasting your money.
There's another question. You mentioned nettle. Is dried one okay as well?
What is, sorry?
Dried is a good one as well. Using a dried one.
Dried nettle is entirely different than the actual food itself. It would be more of a herb at dried, or as a tea. Pick it yourself and make it into a tea. The sticky weed, or common sticky weed that sticks to you. There's one on my Instagram recently that can be made into a tea. Just now that we have more time on our hands, just really look at what's out there. There's we've got coming into flower or coming into season things like wild garlic right now, called ransons. Super yummy. Really, really, really nice, and really quite nice added to your fermented foods.
Okay, we have time for one more question. Someone that's been following you from last week as well. So Katja, you mentioned spores were good last week instead of probiotics. I'm taking...
Not necessarily instead of, but...
Okay.
Yeah.
But they're good. So in addition? In
addition, or if you want to just... Next time you go to buy your probiotic, buy Spore Biotic instead. There's really only one of them on the market. It's called Megaspore Biotic. And up until, as I said last week, they were only available on prescription. It's a good product.
And she's taking reishi powder with spores. Is that what you meant?
It'll be the spores of the reishi. So mushrooms are cultivated by spores. That's how they grow. They grow by spores, or most likely perhaps under the fungal network underneath the soil. It'll be the spores of the reishi. How they affect the gut, they're probably supportive, but the particular spores put in Megaspore Biotic are spores that are found in the gut, specifically found in soil, not necessarily a food substance.
Okay.
Yeah.
So hopefully that answered the questions.
Sure. Good.
Anyone have any other thing you want to add?
I mean, people can always, I've got nothing to do. People can call me if they want to chat.
For the next...
I like chatting.
But yes, definitely. You can always send more either through the emails to Michelle, or directly, of course, to Karamia with any questions. Mm-hmm. And always check on our websites, as we're going to have Karamia for another 3 talks, I think, next week or in the coming 2 weeks. And we have loads of others. So we're going to add some yoga as well next week, and meditations. Nice. And some sleep support from our sleep doctors and sleep professionals. So it's really, really trying to get the variety. We're going to have a session about hormonal balancing as well next week, which will be interesting. So for all of you on the call, keep on, logging into our resources. And Karamia mentioned the POWER program when she was talking about how important, it is to kind of understand more about our health and how we live our life and how much stress we have in our life and what support we can get through that. So I highly recommend it. Thanks to POWER London, we actually have the wellness assessments available for free now. And log into, again, in either POWER website or 58 Wellbeing website, you'll have a link to the wellness assessment. And that really is the first step of going through, how do I live my life? It's like it's a questionnaire, and there will be like about 4 doctors that will review that and will send you an initial report and some recommendations. So highly recommended to do that as well. Thank you, everybody, for joining. Thank you so much, Karamia.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for coming.
Amazing session. And we have a lovely Easter. Happy Easter. Enjoy time at home with families, with Easter eggs, and doing everything you're enjoying doing. It's beautiful, sunny here in London, potentially all the entire UK. So have a wonderful weekend. Thank you, everybody. Thanks.
Thank you.